All right, great. Let's continue with the second workshop. This one's going to be about using components. We're having a page component and a scroll component. Who ever used a component before, one of the components? All right, about half. And we're going to do some inception as well. We're going to use both and use them both at the same time. All right, and we're also going to import from Sketch. And actually the example you have in front of you already has the Sketch file imported. That's what the Sketch import does over there. I'm going to switch to Sketch for a bit, and then you can see all the same layer names on the left. And we got 3 scroll layers, scroll 1, 2, and 3. And they're all positioned at position X, Y, 0, 0. So we're sure when we import them, they're also at the same coordinate. Let's see, switch back to...
Can you speak up a bit?
Oh yeah, sorry. We're switching back to Framer Studio. In the middle you see the layer panel. We got the same, exactly the same layers which we saw in Sketch. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to have a page component. And a page component is actually, wait, I'm first going to talk about the scroll component. We have a scroll component, and it's just like a scroll view, like a smaller clip view with a larger view inside, which you can scroll. And the page component actually is pretty much like the scroll component. It snaps to every certain page, like different layers. What we're going to do right now is first create a page component. I call it page equals new page component, like that. And we already see it appearing on the top left, the small blue square. And when you interact with it, you can already drag the content layer around, like that. What we want to do right now, when I switch back to Sketch, you see we have a header with the M on top, and below there's the content, which is way bigger than the screen currently is. And what we want to do is wrap the content inside of a scroll view, so you can scroll it. And we have the 3 different scroll layers, and we want to switch between them using a page component, so we can go from one page to the other. So the first thing we do right now is create a page component, and we're going to position it with the Y value just below the what's it called here, the Netbar. And we want to make it just as big as a screen, except for the Netbar. So we're going to chop that off. So I'm going to specify the Y value, and it shall be the Sketch. I'm telling you right now Sketch, and that means that I'm trying to get a layer outside of the Sketch import. Right? I can use Sketch dot and look at the layer panel in the middle, and I see it's called navbar, so I can just type that over. Dot hide. And you see the blue page component is right now below our navbar. And I can give it a width. And what we're going to tell, we're going to use the screen. Did we use the screen value? Not yet. You can get the screen values using screen with capitals S dot width, for example. And our page component is going to be the same size as the screen. And we want our height to be the same height as the screen minus the navbar. So we can again say sketch.navbar.height. Wait, something's going on.
Screen.
Oh wait, I made a mirror. Yeah, thanks. All right. So everyone got that? Flick it around and see that the content layer is just the right size. And this is going to be our page component. And right now, you can see it scrolls in all directions, like vertically and both vertically and horizontally. And we want to limit that to only scroll horizontally, because we want to be able to flick through all the pages. So I'm going to specify the scroll. Wait, which one? Block? We're going to block the third one, scroll vertical, and set it to false. So we can only drag from left to right, just like that. Everybody got that? If not, just ask Benjamin and he will be able to help. Alright, we're going to introduce the next thing, which will be new for some of you, and it's looping. Because we have 3 different scroll pages, we don't want to repeat the same logic 3 times, because it would be a lot of code. And that's why we have looping for, so we can create a loop which will go over it a certain amount of times. So we're going to do that. I'm going to write down for, I call it page index, the variable which we are going to define in. It might be a bit of crazy syntax right now, but then we're going to get into it in a minute. And I write something like that. And on the next line, indentation level 1, I print out a value with the page index. If I press refresh, it reloads your, what's it called? Yeah. And what you see right now is we have value 0, 1, 2. So what it does is right now the for loop for page index in. With the square brackets, we're creating an array with values from 0 to 2. And right now we have using 3 dots. If I delete one, I'm going to refresh, we're going to have 3 included. So 2 dots means from 0 up to and including the last number, 3. And 3 dots means up to, only first 3 are included. And that's how looping works. Alright, for each of the scroll layers, we're gonna create a scroll component. That's what we're gonna do right now. So I'm gonna create.
Does it come on like get the concept of looping over an array here? So maybe it's helpful to think back to when we switched between states, and we instead of switching between A and B, we cycled through them. And so you can compare that concept where you have. Basically, we create an array for you where we can infinitely like loop over each item in the array, and whenever the last item is reached, we go back to the first one. So here, really, the for loop is really just we first define a variable that can be anything, but the second part is that you can consider it like a range. So you say from 0 to whatever number, and then it will go through whatever your code is each. Like that many times. So it's from 0 to 10, it will go through 10 times, and the variable allows you to do something with the numbers that it returns. So it returns, in general, in JavaScript, like array indices start with 0. So if you want to grab the first item out of an array, you have to say whatever the name of the array is, and then bracket with a 0, and that allows you to grab the first one. So that's essentially what's happening here as well. The difference is that if you see that he's printing out the page index, it's just a variable, it can be any name. You often see just the letter Y being used as well. But what it does is it runs through it incrementally runs through the range with the number. So for 0, it runs through, it stops, it goes back to the top again, it runs through the code again. So 0, 1, 2, 3, so it allows you to do things multiple times, so they create multiple instances of layers, for example, or do things multiple times.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna do it like that. So we're gonna create the first. Actually, because we're already in a loop, we're gonna create 3 scroll components at the same time. So I'm gonna write right now scroll. Its variable name equals new scroll component. And again, we see the scroll component in the top left of the screen for prototype. And there's 3 on top of each other. That's why it's not that really visible when you drag one. And we want to give it the same size as our page component. So you have to indent one more level and tell it we're using the same size. And right now what we're going to do, we're going to add the page, the scroll layer from here. We're going to add each of them into a single scroll component. And they are named scroll 1, scroll 2, and scroll 3. And right now, we're going to target them individually. So what I'm going to do is say sketch, square brackets, quotes. We're going to create a string, and string is going to be the name of the layer, so we can target that each of the layers. So I write down scroll, and the difference is number 1, 2, and 3. So right now, inside of the string, I'm going to use some new syntax, and that way we can get the number 1, 2, and 3 inside of that string. Right now I'm going to do a hash and then curly braces. That's a way how you can get a variable inside of the string. It's can be pretty tough, but right now what it does is say scroll, and the hash and the square brackets won't be inside the string. They will be deleted, but the value, the variable name, which is put inside the curly braces, is going to be replaced with this template. So I'm going to write down page index in here, and then we have each. Now we have each of the sketch layers targeted, except for one thing. And I'm going to print out the page index again. Page index, and we see the numbers 0, 1, 2, and 3. Well, that's one number too much. You only want to target 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to play around with it. I don't want to start at 0. I want to start at 1. So I'm going to change that number. Refresh, and I see 1, 2, and 3. I'm using 2 dots right now with the creation of the for loop in here. So that means including 3. 1, 2, and 3. So right now, our sketch target code should say scroll 1 for the first loop, scroll 2 for the second loop, and scroll 3 for the third one. So I'm going to delete this, and then I'm going to say for each of the layer, super layer equals scroll. Using super layer, I'm putting the layer inside of another layer, and each of the scroll components we created, we want to add the content layer to it, and you do that using super layer is scroll dot content, the content layer. So right now I can scroll, but they're still on top of each other. That's why if I drag down, you see the other scroll component beneath. You also can see that I can drag the scroll view both horizontally and vertically at the same time. So we can use the same thing we did with the page component. So I can say inside of the definition of the scroll component, I'm gonna add the property scroll horizontal this time. Set it to false. So now I can only drag one direction. Is this okay with everyone? Everyone is everyone okay on the same page? Great.
Can you see a visual difference when you add the super layer? As in, what changes when you just added that?
Sorry, if I can see a visual change right now.
On the screen, yeah. When you
Okay.
add a super layer.
When I didn't use this one,
Yeah.
I was just seeing the scroll component, and it has a black of a blue content layer by default, so I can still scroll this bit, and once I add this line, the content layer is going to be replaced by the sketch layer. We can scroll around. Alright, what we want to do right now is add the scroll component inside of the page component. And the syntax to do that is we're just going to write page dot add page, and we have you're gonna add the scroll component to it like this. So right now what you can do is scroll both vertically and horizontally, and you can switch between the different pages. But you can still do both at the same time right now. You see? You can drag one layer down and drag it on the side. That looks a bit weird. It's probably not what you want. So we have another property for that. We're gonna tell the page component to lock the direction. So we don't want to be able to drag down and to the left all at the same time. You can only do one, both. Let's call direction lock. And I put that on, true. And I do the same for the scroll component. Direction lock, true. And if I do that, I can only do one thing at a time. So I can scroll horizontally, but not vertically. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry.
So like another crucial aspect, or one of the fundamental components to understand is that every time you create a component, so a page component or scroll component, it does multiple things for you behind the scenes. So the reason we even named them components internally is because we needed a term for, instead of a layer, it creates multiple layers and even predefines some interactions for you. So both the scroll component and the page component layers, or components, sorry, create layers for you behind the scenes. So, example, when you initialize a page component or you create a new scroll component, automatically a scroll.content layer or a page.content layer is created for you. So that's why, in this case, we can, when you see, in this example, you see a target the sketch layers, and then we place that in the scroll.content layer. So that actually is just a framer layer that automatically is created for you whenever you create any component.
Yeah, and using the layer panel in the center, we can investigate it a bit more. Like with the page component on top, and you see the screen size except for the header, the Netbar. Inside there's a page content layer, which is it's the same height, but it's 3 times as wide because we added 3 pages to the page component. And for the first one we added, it's going to be this one. It currently has the same size as screen. Inside there's a scroll content layer, which is as large as the content. And that's scroll. That's called scroll 1, which is inside. So this is a really nice way to investigate the structure of the entire component. When I scroll 1 to the left, if I guess investigate the same layer, you see it's moving to the left, and scroll content down. Right. Right now, when you scroll down on the first page, it's not that nice. There's no visual difference, so the white's just flowing over into the other white. And in sketch file, if you go to sketch, we have a Netbar shadow to make it more visually appealing. And that one is right now, because we added all the scroll components in their Z position, they're layered on top of it. That's why the shadow is right now hidden behind all the layers. We want to move that up a bit. So I'm going to the next line, remove the indentation, and I'm going to target the shadow. I'm going to write sketch dot nav bar shadow with caps in between, title, and then I'm going to tell it to go to the front, and that's I write down bring to front, and right now nothing's happening, but it's a function call, so I need to add braces, how do you call it? Parentheses.
Or curly braces.
Oh, curly braces are different ones. Parentheses afterwards. Right now you see the shadow has appeared just below the nav bar. When I scroll, you see a nice visual difference between the layers.
Yeah, so the only real reason why we specifically do this in this very specific case is the shadow layer. I just created a transparent, semi-transparent rectangle in Sketch, and because if I do a drop shadow in Sketch, I could also it's easier, right? But then the entire layer group gets flattened, and so if you do like 1 pixel with 2 pixel blur, you can see it kind of getting flattened, and it gets a white background on the end. And in this case, because it's white on white, we kind of want the true transparency, so we want to not include it in the nav bar group. And we want to kind of have it sit on top of that, so that the entire content below passes through the transparent layer. And then it works, like you get a crisp, sharp nav bar on white. And also when the background, or like when it's an image passing through, it still stays sharp. But it's just like a very specific trick in general. Another thing is maybe helpful to illustrate for me to really quickly draw out like how the masking works. So with the components. So previously, before we had components, to create like a scrollable layer, you have to do it manually. So in general, this is roughly what happens. So we have, let's say this is the component, so this is the scroll. Now to create something that is scrollable, this needs to be a mask, right? So consider this a mask, which means it has clipping enabled. And this is also a framework property like scroll and clip. What we do this by default when creating a scroll component. So but previously, if you wanted to have something that was actually scrollable, let's say this is the content. The content needs to be either exceed the width or the height of its parent layer. So previously, you had to say, okay, whatever I want to have my content scrollable, it has to be larger than my parent layer or my super layer. So in this case, we would have to say the content layer has to be within my scroll layer. So this is the super layer, and this is the child layer, or super layer and sub layer. And then and whatever content is in here is only able to be scrollable if clipping is enabled on this layer. So here we set clip to true. And then effectively it's like a window almost. You can consider we move this as a draggable layer above or below your content. So we swip this, and then you get basically the scrolling effect. And because it's a draggable layer, all the content is a draggable layer. So all the draggable properties like velocity and momentum are still available to you even when you're working with scroll components. But this is basically all the things that we do in Framer behind the scenes whenever you create either a scroll component or a page component. And the difference is, like page components, obviously it's horizontal, and we do the math for you as well when we calculate whenever you want to snap to which page, so you don't have to do it manually. You can customize it, but by default we decide which page to snap to depending on the distance between, like which one's in view the most, how fast are you swiping. You can even continue swiping and switch from page 1 to 3. But that's all like little things that we take care of for you to make it really easy to start prototyping these interactions using components.
Thanks.
Is anyone really, really confused? Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Let's see.
Super layer the same as file.
Yeah. So if you
Right.
consider like a hierarchy.
Right now, when I scroll the content layer, you can see the offset is really, really small from the last line. We can increase that using a property called content inset. So on the scroll component, I'm gonna add one content inset, and then I wanna have more content inset only on the bottom part because I think the other ones are pretty good aligned. At the bottom, maybe I can better indent this one, and I wanna add 20, for example. Wait, I'm gonna make it a bit bigger so you can see what's happening. 80, and now there's a bigger distance from the bottom. We can also do this for the top if you like. And you see everything shifts down a bit. We also have left and right, of course, but that's not really necessary in this time. I'm actually only going to use the bottom one, from something like 40. I think that just looks great. And then I have one last thing with this example. We have a thing which is really common on iOS when you're at the bottom of a scroll view and you press at the top at the toolbar here, it scrolls all the way to the top. And we want to have the same effect right here. So I can define an event on the navbar. We're going to do sketch dot navbar dot on events dot click, and then we're going to ask the page component which page is the current page, because we only want to scroll to the top of the current page. I'm gonna write down page dot current page, and the current page is going to be one of the scroll views, the scroll components. Dot scroll to top. And scroll to top again is a function, and to make it work we have to add the parentheses. Alright, now I can move around, scroll down, press inside of the navigation bar, and we scroll the way up. And there are a lot more properties, and I always forget about them because there are way too many. You can always go to the docs online, or it's also possible to do it inside of Studio, but I like to go online because I can easily tab between the website and Framer Studio. Go to Framer.js. Alright, the docs. And here you can read about all the properties there are. When we go to the scroll component, we have a huge list of things you can change, like, for example, the velocity, and you can scroll to a specific point. And there are lots of other things you can do. And the same goes for the page component. There's also lots of properties like the current page we just used. You can also ask for the closest page, because the current page only changes when it comes to a stand. And the closest page is always going to be the one nearest to your current position, and you can go to the next page or previous page or snap to a specific page. Not really. Are there any questions currently? Or is everybody okay?